Today I'm gonna talk very, very low because I'm still a bit. mm, I have a little bit of a sore throat, so I'm not gonna over overextend myself and keep it simpler. Today's word is trunk. Trunk. I thought about what to use, and I end up with a nice reference of a trunk in a wooden house. So that's covers both of them. And we're gonna just run it. Okay, the way in which I can set this up is I think I need to divide first and foremost my stuff. So I need some point of reference to where goes what. Like about the half point, this is one part. We have to keep the trunk it is relaxing to draw something simple for today. Yesterday I think I chose something which was fun, but also very much not relaxing. I'm gonna have to widen it up. Because my frame is square, so it doesn't mimic that well what I see in the picture, but that's fair. Now over here, I'm gonna do a couple of trunks which are behind the box. There's the wooden floor. Which I guess I can just like let's define where it finishes. Yes, also the door frame. And let's block out this, let's block out that. have to say, overall is kind of nice. Like, obviously the frame here can make some work, but at least I can pinpoint what I'm drawing when. So that's the most important part. So I think that the thing that sounds the most fun is the box. I'm gonna start with that. It reminded me of the fact that I haven't yet gotten around to start draw a box, which is a shame. I think it's a brilliant program. Well, to start, actually, I'm very close to finish. I have some studies that I was keep going about the gestures. But that hasn't been going amazingly well. It's just that I'm little by little understanding what I'm not understanding. So I'm willing to go back to draw a box. Now getting back to the basics. It's just becoming kind of hard to put some studying time as well. I think I'm gonna start to make like the minimal amount of study possible, just so that it gets easier to step into. In the same way that I started drawing, now that drawing is fun, studying isn't. So not my goals have shifted, but rather I've became complacent. And that's not, and that's going to be detrimental, I think, at some point. It's kind of fun to improve. So I wish to get back on track. Don't know when that is going to be. But I've gone a long way into the having fun portion of drawing. I think I'll also manage to get back into the less fun of bits. It's because it's that studying it really is simpler in the sense that there's some structures, there's some pathos to it, and you feel justified into studying rather than drawing for fun. And at the beginning, that gave me some extra reassurance because I was like, yes, I'm gonna improve sooner or later. Then this summer rolled out, and in vacation I in CV in what's it called in Valencia. I had this awakening and started taking things a little more lightly, and that was a great idea. But now I need to find some way that my day can work around the fact that I need to both study and draw for fun. Just so that I can get the best of the two worlds, having both a lot of studying experience and a lot of drawing mileage. But life gets busy, so it is easy to prioritize other things in life. Like there's a plethora of excuses that at any time can be given. So that's always the default mode. Now I want to know why. Oh, my bitrate is actually way too high. Let's go at 5.5. I think 5.5 was pretty stable. Because I don't know also in this context what unstable actually means. Well, anyway. So yeah, it is about getting back to studies. Because like it or not, those are gonna help. And I was actually very contrary to doing them. It's just that art does take a long time to get good at. Simply to be an illustrator, it just takes a long, long time. And it can be frustrating to stay in place for that long. And it did got to me. That's why I overcompensated at that point in time. I wish I hadn't, even if at this moment it is being kind of nice to have the extra knowledge, but it hurt me in terms of timing of progress or in terms of overall progress. It would have been way easier to just find a way like this one to stick to drawing. But as most things in life, I don't like better now than never, but I guess until you get for yourself the point across, that works. Now, I don't think I'm gonna texture all of them. I'll try to just add at most a little texture to each. Also because there's this column to be done with. And there's the wall. So one way in which I'm gonna get some amount of contrast is definitely if I add some texture to the wall, or add actually very little texture to the wall. No, wait. Technically is more texture takes it away, right? So it is hitting the middle. Very well. I think it is a little bit over symmetrical. So that gives it a weirder look. Now door frame. And door frame. This is going to double up. It's such a busy scene, man. Now I don't know if I want the details, like in which way I want the details to go. It's either I put them on the, like I want to pop the box out. And I don't know if I should go with monochrome as a background choice or leave it white and I can put a subtle gray. I think I'm gonna go white to gray because technically that will pop up. No, actually it's going to be the opposite. Where's the light? That's where stuff pops out most. Okay. I'm gonna go straight out with blue in this case, get to 15. Like, I think that strictly line speaking, stuff is so busy that if I add gray, it's going to be even more. So my idea would be to just simply not do that. The floorboards is okay. And have some simpler approach. There's a fuck ton of details here. Tell you what, this is just going to be black. I think that this is just distracting. And then some trees. Trees are less wavy. And they're kinda more similar to like some kind of pillars. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be all light quality. I think that the wall feels a little stiff. I'm gonna experiment. First off, let's ink everything. Make it a little less stiff, so give it some better contours. Then we see, starting from the box. The box is being fun. All right. Turn it blue. And let's get to the hinge of this. Nice. I might even get a sharper. Um, yeah, I want to grayscale this one and leave everything background in white. It's still going to provide some kind of contrast. Cross hatching has become basically my meditation technique. I can just go and cross hatch for days. There is something about it being some meditation technique. This is also the part where I can speak more because I'm thinking less. I hope that as I get better, my speaking can my speaking time can improve. It probably will. Also because it is at the same time a lot of practice for my English. Just the moment I think it's fine, but we can also get better. Like at the moment, I'm not in some sort of need. But reading English has served me a lot throughout the years, and being able to speak it will definitely also add some kind of value. Maybe not now, but even if the channel starts, that's one thing. The other thing is also just work related. Because it's not the vocabulary that's missing, but just this being used to finish sentences or to start full in English. You just can't do good practice, or I couldn't do any good practice with my peers. Because not a lot of them were into American media as much as I used to be. What used to be is incorrect. I still follow I still have a lot of interest. I don't follow much of the Italian um, side of things, simply for the lack of interest. I think I got sucked into the internet culture, so it is just bigger when we talk about globally versus Italy, as obvious as that sound. So I got used to that. And I always picture going English just because, well, part of it is definitely that if I want to make a comic book, making it Italian is just a plain waste of time without being, it's not even being about being fatalist, but more so that there is a small culture of comic books here. It's not to say that it's inexistent, but it is small, and the kind of comics that goes, it's not my kind. And I'd rather flop and make big mistakes, but to the public that actually would be interested. No, it's way worse when you're gonna when the flop is not even related to your own mistakes, but rather that's just how it's being perceived. If you want to make a slasher movies and you show it to children of 6 year old, chances are that they won't enjoy it, and that's perfectly reasonable. Where same goes over here. Not that Italian like people are 6 years old, but more like they're not the target audience of what I'm doing. I'm really not a huge fan. Actually, I'm not a fan at all. Try my best to get into what's called mm, shameless, but tragedy of the real life. They do impact me, but they don't interest me. I think I've witnessed enough for it to not be something that resonates. There's a part of me that got numbered to this idea. In the other part is also so part of it is being numb to it. The other part is I'm really fascinating with magic. And so if there's no magic system, my interest gets down. It also fades when this magic system is not good. There's a sweet spot of magic systems where too simplistic, it's boring, but if it's extra convoluted, it's also not good. Like the good middleware would be to have it be simple enough to be understandable, but complicated enough to allow for good variations. So that was at what I'm aiming at. Same goes for the drawing. I'm not an illustrator, so the art part is not important. Sorry, that okay, so answer to my girlfriend. Okay. So that takes care of that. And yeah, at this point in time, I'm not very interested into the real life dilemmas, like I or similar to real life. That's something that I can experience if I really choose so, and it makes to me less. It is less comparing to me than the unexplored stuff, if done correctly. Now, that's the part that usually sucks, is the actual execution of this stuff. That's actually what prompted me to try my hands on comic book. I truly believe I can make something cool. Like truly believe it in a deluded manner. Like yes, for sure, I believe that I can. I understand that the first time is not a charm, so it's going to be a bumpy road on that regard. But one way to solve this dilemma is to simply try it out and see if what I tried to say or what I'm gonna try to showcase it is actually worth for them or not. Like it's very simple to just it's very simple. I don't have to wonder if I'm good or not. I can just write my comic and take a look. Hopefully I'm gonna be proven right and that I have some taste in it. But it's not the case. At least I gathered a lot of appreciation, a lot more appreciation of what I consumed than before. And that's still something good in my book. It has it has become very easy to always be cynical about what you to both be cynical and gobble down bullshit. At the very least, I am appreciating what I'm being served at this moment. Like maybe 2 years ago when something was not really good, I would have been a lot more critical and at the same time very cynical, which of course was ignorant. I'm aware of me being ignorant at the time. But it's kind of needed. You don't get smarter by being smart all along, so or in this case, I should say wiser. I think I wisen up over time. Or I perceive myself as more wise than at that specific time. God damn it. Bro. Let's get everything closer. This is getting ridiculous. Okay, this is the one. Can I make a bigger part that stands on top of it? Something like this. Okay, sick. That works well. But yeah, it's very easy to judge from the sidelines. That's why I started to not enjoy a lot of YouTubers, especially the critics kind. 'Cause a lot of them are just watching from the side, and it is very convenient to to judge something that you don't work, and I think at the same time it is also not that impactful when somebody that doesn't know, not impactful, but I think it's also harmful because even if they don't preach it as a teaching, I think that someone like myself might take that as the way to execute a story. I follow a lot of storytellers, or I should say, story critics. And over time, I'm starting to unfollowing a lot of them, just because most of these guys take arbitrary decisions into what's important and how they judge it of a story. And to me, that feels contrived because if you don't know how to write a story, or if you don't write stories in general, I think that talking about what are the pivotal aspects is very stupid, or try to try to be a critic is also very stupid, because most of the time you're gonna be talking about stuff that doesn't really matter. is just what arbitrary thing you chose to focus on about. It's more about the entertainment aspect, which I understand, I get. But the problem is that there's still somebody who talks about this stuff. They're still divulgating some bullshit ideas, which I'd rather that they didn't. Of course, to each their own. I'm not gonna stand here and tell people what to do or what videos to make. In my personal way, I just stopped following them or greatly reduce the amount of people that I follow that are these scuffed kind of critics. I much rather them having a shitty book or manga or whatever, rather than them speaking out of their anus with nothing to show for. Of course, people who do that, they don't really have time to make videos on YouTube, especially if you're an indie creator. That's a shame, but that's also reality. Like if you're into creating, you're obviously not gonna stand up all day and make videos. That's just not in the realm of possibilities. And totally respected. Actually, it's actually even I would say better this way, but it does make it harder for beginning artists to get any amount of good information, because the people who actually make good stuff, they're often making good stuff. So there's not going to be somebody to hold your hand there. Again, totally respected. I hope we keep it that way. It would also be cool to have someone more to the roster. Actually, it did make the wrong perspective here, didn't I? Yeah, I believe so. That's okay. Let's gray out the box. So this is reference. Pick up the bucket. So let's pick some lighter gray for these guys. So this night's light gray. Let me go a little bit lighter, I think. But whatever. Good. Takes a lot, gives a lot of personality like this. Then we can work on the shadows. Actually, I forgot about the... to give a little more... Okay, let's start by refining some details. The fuck? Hey, this gives a very good read. You know, the read is very nice. But yeah, so these YouTubers, I think, got a little bit out of hand. There's so many people that don't do any kind of art, but they're suddenly these experts on how to make books or comic books or whatever. And up at some point, I was like, yeah, that's fine. I started to believe that it's not really beneficial in the sense that even if you don't intend to teach, like even if that's not what you set up to do, at the end of the day, you are going to. That's what the part of the influencer is. You do influence how other perceive, how other act. It just feels not amazing the fact that people are gonna take these bad advices with them and to heart. Same way, I don't think that a lot of people want to have around bad tutorials when it comes to illustration, even if there are, because that's how it's going to be. A lot of people gather or want to gather views, and they will do stupid videos in which give stupid advices, or maybe even they give hacks that makes you feel like you're better or gives you better results, which is really not what the illustration path is about. Or should I say mm, any artisanal pursuit, I think, should be wary of the results. It's kind of the journey is the destination sort of deal. And I have understood it just so recently. Because I've been in the shoes of anybody else at this moment. And so it makes me feel bad to have this kind of information around. Yet again, it makes harder for approaching artists to really start in the industry, because there isn't really anyone who's going to help you out by that much. Simply virtue of the fact that these people just write. They're out there and producing. So there is no time to give out lectures. I've seen it being way more common in the book industry. In my opinion, it might be because books require a long time, yes, but they still are one-man production plus maybe an editor or whatever. So that's going to allow you some space to get into teaching. But comic books, especially Japan, is the worst offender by far. I think it's basically the same in most places. But besides Japan, I would say that generally speaking, comic books, it's hard to make comic books and keep up with any kind of educational content for anyone else. Both goes both as maybe an educator or a divulgator. It's just not gonna happen. Also, the vast majority of work is still concentrated in Japan, which will again limit the amount of people who are going to teach you anything. Japanese people are more reserved. I don't know of many. There are few good YouTubers out there who are Japanese and teach you anything about manga or any of that word, which is a shame. Big shame. Now, I don't specifically want to make a manga, as weird as that sounds. Now that is the cool. That now is the cool time to make mangas. It's just I don't want to specifically be that label. Not because any some self-grandized ideas. It's just simply that this impose yourself some rules, like black and white, that I don't really want and need. And the second part would be the idea of capitalizing at Webtoon. Since Webtoons are a big thing, going color is gonna help to reach that market, which is very rich. But even like as an end user, I appreciate a lot the comfort of reading a webtoon. A lot of us do end up on the phones. It's just simply inevitable. And I wish to provide that experience regardless. Like some people, like myself, enjoy a good manga, enjoy a good comic. There's thinking about the layout. There's tireless work about to make it look as good as possible. But sometimes you just want to consume stuff and be done with it, or even in places where you are not that comfortable with anything but a phone. And that extra option is actually very cool. So kudos for the webtoon. I think it's actually very cool that it exploded as it did. Now I'm about to get into sprinting because we have about 45 minutes before I start to need to go to work, which is unfortunate. I think I'm vibing and I'm in the flow both in my both here and as both in my drawing and in my stream. But that is okay. I mean, it's still one thing that requires I should not overextend myself too much. I'm very wary of not burning out the goodwill or the even the good what do I say, the role, the role that I'm having. Like now I'm in a good role, so try my best to not ruin that. It's very hard to get back into it, and the easiest way is to just never get out. That was the biggest objective in my streams, as in general, as my pursuits. I think the biggest way in which to improve and keep going is survival mode. Don't overextend. Get a kick daily. And be back for more for tomorrow. Because as much as you can give today, tomorrow is still around the corner. I think that's why I stopped the running. It's because I always kicked the hardest on the day. And that was okay when I was lighter. But as long as I started to gain some weight, both as fat and as I proceed with the gym, it little by little got to me. But I was lucky enough to have very few and also very mild injuries which allowed me to still get back and taught me what I was doing wrong in the what was my perception wrong at the beginning, which now means I can get back into my hobbies without hurting myself currently. So at the end of the day, the value was there. At the end of the day, it wasn't like the worst idea. Actually, even more, I think it was somewhat beneficial. There's always some desire to have things be better, or you wish that it went in a different way or in a more convenient way. But maybe the convenient part is not what it was about. That's the way that I talking to myself. So that is what I'm gonna take a look into. This today I'm more aware of the details of the background. I don't want the background to overshadow the box, which means I'm gonna be very careful with how much of details we're gonna roll. In this case, I'm gonna use the draw box method, and or should I say the do a box stitching is more of a method, is a philosophy, which just simply states that most of the read of an object comes from its contour. So I'm following my circles, but in reality I'm gonna give this a tiny bit amount of texture to these guys. So that I don't need to really hammer in the details as much. And that's going to be less distracting and also less time consuming. One thing that I always see as an advice by many is like, why don't you use some kind of cool brush that will alleviate your work? And they're not wrong. So that's a good idea. Just depending on what is the objective at that precise moment. At this precise moment, my objective is not to get things done. It's more about the fun of what I'm doing. And by that metric, it doesn't really make much sense to skip the drawing aspect. And that's why I'm not. It will make a lot more sense when I'm going to be in full production for the comic. Like, that's the time to use any shortcut that is not worsening the actual comic. Because the 3D assets are interesting, and I think they can allow to recover some time. but most of the time that they're getting used, they're very recognizable. And in anime, I think is way better because most people aren't watching us closely. So for the scenes that aren't the focus, that's good. Comic book fans should be able to kind of notice, because usually if you gotten to the point that you're reading a comic, that means that there is a little bit more, you're putting a little bit more effort into anything. Now, don't get me wrong, I have gobbled a lot of comic books back in my day. It is very hard for myself to restrain and just read it, take my time. I always get this have to be doing something more at this moment anxiety kind, like the Sigma male um, cancer that spread through the internet, which is bullshit. And I'm not. I'm a little bit disappointed that can take my time. It's not also. It is part that of the Sigma bullcrap, but it is even generally what you get trained. These waves of content, what they do, and it isn't really. I'm not really enjoying as much of the comics or of the webtoons, just because I don't have the patience to watch them little by little. I got used to gobble them as smaller when I was smaller, and I brought it in the adulthood. Now I'm little by little buying stuff that I read when I had little money, and having one volume at the time is cool because I've purposely stopped myself, both for economic reason, but mostly, no, actually it is more for economical reason, but unironically it also is helping to pace myself a little better and not utterly destroy my reads, which is simply not gonna yield cool results. Okay, for some reason I was doing the incorrect perspective. I feel like I understand perspective, but every time I mess it up, which means I should probably go back to it. It needs to be something to watch out for. Okay, very well. In general speaking, to slow down and enjoy is one part that I'm not good at this moment, and I fully intend on becoming. As for myself, both I feeling more responsible as an artist, but at the same time I'm also feeling it as a more responsibility, as even as maturity. There's nobody who's running me back. Yeah, sure, time is limited, whatever. But there is a part of me that wants to cultivate simply, yes, time is limited. We're gonna die, all the good stuff. Sure. No big deal. But one thing to remember is just having more doesn't necessarily make it better spent. So it lifted a lot of anxiety from myself. Not a very anxious person by design. Um, I was never the one to be very have a big anxiety. But when it happens, it's probably worse than it could be. So lifting it up, it was a great idea. Okay. I say it's been working kinda steady and kinda good. I'm gonna keep everything very simple by this part. Because otherwise it's going to be harder to understand what the fuck is going on in the foreground. The background is going to be purposely simplified. But yeah, the Inktober had a good effect on, had a good imprint on me. I start to understand choices made by people. I'm reading currently Dr. Stone. I'm rereading currently Dr. Stone and Solitaire and taking part of this, even taking a look at what other artists do. Little by little, my questions are answered without me asking. And it's been helping me out in more ways than I could understood when I started. So not gonna lie, that's kind of cool. It's an unexpected perk. I didn't fully grasp this kind of an effect. I didn't fully understand that this kind of an effect could have taken place. Right now, the biggest part that I want to start my work on is the daily writing. At this moment, I am I am writing in a weekly fashion. And even that is not 100% respected. So one thing that I should be working on is to move it to daily. My art is becoming to a point in which I could call respectable. Obviously, in an amateurish way, respectable. But still, respectable is good. Even as an amateur, I'm not gonna. It's not bad the idea of being an amateur, and as long as the art gets the brings the story, doesn't slow down the story, and anything else is secondary. Just because art is maybe, even if it ends up being the most amazing thing ever, if the story is subpar, it's a lot of wasted work. Maybe wasted is the incorrect term, but that's you have some good effort, you have a lot of effort for very little result, because that's not delivering the, the drawing. That's not the part of the story that's important, but delivering the. It's all about delivering the story. Now, the trees aspect here is not amazing, but I've gone over my 1 hour time. So that's very good. I'm gonna finish up by getting done with the floorboards. And as of today, it was a pretty good. It feels pretty good. Also, the level of care does feel higher day by day, so definitely a plus. All right. Son of a bitch. Of course, I was in the wrong layer. Can't even begin to think that desperation by doing this pen and paper and getting back. Now, obviously, those who are actually good at drawing gonna be making way less mistakes than I do. But still, dude, can you imagine screwing it up? It's gonna be like to cry for. So that's how it goes. This is the day's work. I think it kind of works. I don't know. The background and the foreground separation is cool. Everything else, the chest looks nice. I'm gonna export this one and I'm gonna as 14. And that's how it is. That's how today's was. I will take a look tomorrow. You know what the next word is. I'm running out of voice. So see ya.